In Montgomery County Public Schools, staffing allocations are based on 4 principles: consistency, differentiation, transparency, and flexibility. We want to ensure that our resources are allocated consistently so that schools with similar needs receive similar resources. We also want to make sure that we differentiate our resources so that those schools and programs with greater needs receive greater resources. We want to make sure that those resources are allocated transparently so that people understand how and why decisions are made about allocations. And we want to ensure that once resources are allocated, that they are able to be used in a flexible manner so that we can meet the individual needs of students and programs. Let's take a look at how that plays out as we look at 3 of our elementary schools. Our first elementary school has 600 students. 6% of the students are impacted by poverty, farms, free and reduced meals. There are 37 ESOL students in this school. Our second school, a focus school, has a similar enrollment of 615. There 50% of the students are impacted by farms or impacted by poverty, and there are 113 ESOL students. And our third school also has a similar enrollment of 609 students, but 82% of those students are impacted by poverty, with 317 of those students ESOL students. Let's see how the differentiated formulas result in staffing allocated to these 3 schools. We begin with a base allocation to all schools. This base allocation is based on formulas. These formulas are enrollment driven. Allocations come in full-time equivalents, or FTEs. These FTEs can be full-time, or they might be partial allocation based on the number of hours that the employee is in the school. In the case of this school, we allocate the kindergarten teachers and the grades 1 through 5 teachers first by looking at how many students are in each grade. For this school, we have 4 kindergarten teachers allocated and 21 classroom teachers allocated. We then moved and allocate our reading specialist, our counselor, a staff development teacher, and a media specialist, 4 non-teaching positions to the elementary school. Next, we allocate art, music, and PE. These are allocated based on how many kindergarten and classroom teachers there are. In this case, 1 allocation for each of the 3 positions for a total of 3 positions. Next, clerical staffing is allocated based on enrollment. A 2.5 FTE is allocated to the school. And last, we allocate our educational assistants. These are our paraprofessionals, our paraeducators, and our media assistants. These are based on enrollment, and in this case, 3.75 is allocated to the school. Now let's look at how the principles come to play when we look at our focus school and our Title I schools. We first lay in our base staffing, and then we use our differentiated formula to determine what additional staffing the school might need. These differentiated formulas are based on need, so that schools with greater needs receive greater resources. As you look at kindergarten, you will notice that 2 additional positions have been allocated. This is based on lower class sizes that we use for kindergarten. Similarly, 3 additional positions are allocated for classroom teachers grades 1 through 5. This is because we use lower class size formulas in grades 1 and 2 for our focus and Title I schools. For the non-teaching reading specialist, counselor, staff development teacher, and media positions, we allocate an additional 0.5 to our most highly impacted large schools. And so you see in this case, the Title I school is allocated an additional 0.5. For art, music, and PE, the allocation is based on how many kindergarten and classroom teachers there are. And so an additional 0.3 is allocated for each art, music, and PE for a total of 3.9. Clerical staffing is not differentiated based on number of students impacted by poverty, and so the formula is the same for all 3 of the schools in our example. Academic intervention and focus teachers are based on need, and so a school with low farms, like the one we have here, will be allocated no focus teachers. A school with 50% farms is allocated a 2.7 allocation. And a Title I school receives 5.8 based on their needs. For ESOL teachers, we allocate based on the total number of students in each of the levels 1 through 5. Our Low Farm School with 37 students is allocated a 0.7. Our Focus School with 113 students is allocated 2.0. And our Title I school with 317 students is allocated a 7.2. Educational assistants are paraprofessionals. We have a base allocation of 3.75, and additional allocations are made based on the school needs. In this case, an additional 2.25 focus paraeducator is allocated. In our Title I school, you see a 1.4275 paraeducator. This is an example of our flexibility principle at play. The school chose to have more focused teachers and fewer educational assistants. Another school might trade and choose the opposite. They make their decisions based on the school need and the student need. The end result are 3 schools with similar enrollment but very different needs and a very different allocation. These allocations are based on those principles, and that's how we do it in Montgomery County Public Schools.